you make a mistake, you're going to get yelled at and screamed at. And so it made them hesitant. And then they were just hesitant through the rest of their careers, or they got tired of getting yelled at. We do train to not rush in. My job is to take that step back and stand on the sidewalk and look at the house, count how many floors. I think you got to trust yourself more than anything else. And when I've seen micromanagers, I've always felt it was an insecurity on their part, that they were unwilling to accept other people's opinions. In a lot of management I talk to, they see caring and empathy as a weakness. And I come from the exact opposite standpoint of that. Empathy and caring is a strength. If you've led a team for 10 people and nobody is being promoted, that's a failure of your leadership.
Hey, just before we jump into the show, got a little favor to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please make sure you are subscribed on the platform of your choice. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever platform that might be. The more people who subscribe and the more people who like and rate the show, the more we give you an opportunity to have some great takeaways. It doesn't take you too long, and it would be a great help to us to help us grow the show. For now, that's it. Enjoy today's recording. Good morning, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us from the other side of the world. Would you just like to give the listeners a bit of a background to who you are and a bit of history about where you've got to today?
Oh, absolutely. I retired just late last year as a firefighter and paramedic in Dearborn, Michigan. We're on Detroit's west border. We're one of the largest cities in Michigan, and spent 28 years with them. Worked private ambulance and some part-time fire, climbing up the ladder in the 90s as I was applying to full-time departments, just kind of, chipping away and building the resume and hopefully becoming a better candidate each year. And I eventually got hired in Dearborn and wrapped up a career. And during my last year, I started writing this book, Leading Through the Heat, and found myself interested in leading people and management. And there were always ways that I wanted to make the department better for the people that came after me. And so I distilled it down into a book, and it came out around the new year.
And so leadership in the fire department is very different from business, but there's a lot of lessons you can take in the same way. So, what sort of thing made you get to the point of going, right, I want to write a book, and this is the thing that I can put forward about my lessons?
I have a GoPro style camera on my helmet, and only got maybe the last 3 years of the career. And I really regret not doing it before. It actually gave you some pretty good footage. And so I was able to post some of that on Instagram and some other firefighter Instagram pages. And I just ended up with a streak of fires that last few years. And I ended up with just a good amount of helmet cam video. And then so Instagram pages started messaging saying, hey, come on my podcast and let's talk shop and tactics and strategy and discuss leadership and management and your role as company officer. And then as I was looking at the little handwritten talking points that I had compiled, I said, gosh, I think a few of these could turn into pretty good essays. Maybe I should start submitting magazine articles again like I used to back in the day. And then I realized, what am I doing? I've always toyed around the idea of a book. Let's just knuckle down and just see what I got. And before I knew it, I had 3 chapters. So it just became a thing.
What things have you seen that make you go, this is leadership?
I found myself early on in the career noticing good leadership and poor leadership. So when leaders were struggling or leaders were succeeding, I figured out after a few years, I was keeping this mental inventory of traits that I liked, that if I was ever later in my career given that opportunity to step up and become an officer, that I would come in with a lot of thoughts already predetermined based on those experiences. And a lot of it were peer-to-peer conversations too, just people I grew up with on the job we found ourselves gravitating on those same lessons. And so uh, for me, I noticed at about year 1 or 2 that I was already starting to notice the types of bosses I wanted to work for.
What sort of bosses were those, and what were the traits you were finding useful? Because you're in a high stakes environment, right, where you are going to if you don't like your boss, don't respect your boss, and can't work with your boss, it's fine possibly in the office, but in a high pressure environment where you are, that could be harder, right?
It sometimes can be. The dynamic of the fire service is there is the downtime between calls. My city's pretty busy with medical runs, so the ambulances are in and out all day long. The fire truck is going on a lot of the medical calls with them if it sounds kind of serious, or if we're just out of ambulances. And so it's busy enough to keep you steady, but a lot of the job ends up being kind of routine and sometimes even mundane. And so I found that the leadership for me started in the fire station with those day-to-day tasks. And I noticed some officers getting promoted and then going straight to their office and just hanging out by themselves all day because they were just tired or burned out or not interested. And I liked the officers that remained as part of the team and would get out of that office and walk around, because I noticed when we had problems, if an officer was present, they could catch those problems when they were small. They could help deal with the problems when they were just annoyances before they became problems. And so I always gravitated towards the bosses that liked being part of the crew and were available to us.
And you talk about leadership in a firehouse being sort of like a survival. What's when you're under pressure, do you think it reveals about people in those environments? Because you as a leader, I manage a team of 15, and you get different challenges every day, but it's not that pressure, and until you feel the heat of the fire, pardon the pun, but what does that reveal in people, do you think?
I saw it reveal a lot of their own character at times. So if people were, and it might not even be their fault, if people were indecisive, a lot of the times I found that a failure of the leadership of the department, of the administration, because a lot of those times those people were just taught this way. You make a mistake, you're going to get yelled at and screamed at. And so it made them hesitant. And then they were just hesitant through the rest of their careers, or they got tired of getting yelled at. So they would run every decision through a chain of command, delaying answers to those problems we were faced with. And so I wanted to be the type of boss that was willing to make a decision and stand by it, because those were the scenes that I saw went well, and the types of scenes that I thought led to better outcomes, not only for the medical patient or the property we were trying to protect, but for the team members that were trying to grow on the job and learn the job skills and learn the team dynamics of everything. Being able to make decisions in the moment, I always thought helped the team dynamics and helped the younger people grow.
And that's a really interesting point, because there's two types of leadership, or there's many types of leadership, but there's the type of leadership which is like giving orders and barking orders at people, or there's a type which is more leading and taking the team with you. And sometimes you do, as a leader, even if you're the more calm, measured, sometimes you need to just go, this is what we're going to do. And how do you adapt to that in a pressured environment, like, in a fire or a rescue situation? Are you able to switch that, or do you think you have to be a one type of leader all the way through?
I liked being one type of leader all the way through. That doesn't mean if we were in a tight spot or just a decision needed to be made in the station about even something non-emergent, that I wasn't able to just say, hey, crew, I need you to do A, B, and C, and here's the deadline, go get it done. But most of the time, specifically with the emergent calls, I found the true team building and leadership of those scenes was built way before. So if we're together as a crew and I care enough as the boss to be training with the crew and preparing them, So we're gonna take the jaws of life off this engine, and we're gonna practice on this tool, and we're gonna do it every single month until we got it down. We're gonna look at this video from Instagram or YouTube of this house fire and look at the way these firefighters did something, and how would we do it if it was a house in our district. We're going to take photos of buildings in our district, and we're going to tabletop exercise. If anything happens here, how would we deploy? What tools would we deploy, and where would we stand? We would practice with the hose loads and with the hand tools and the door breaking down tools and the ladders. So when we got to a scene, I occasionally might have to just give a minor direction, but for the most part, I was able to just tell them what's the strategy or what my goals are, and then they could just go.
That comes from leadership and practicing every day. You must have faced environments which you didn't have the chance to practice. You can't scout every building. You can't scout every building in your district. And all that sort of thing, right? Do you think it's the muscle memory that the team have, and they know their positions? You're going to do this. You're going to do this, and it's a well drilled team, or how do you think that worked?
I think you could always have a little bit of muscle memory, even if it's a unique situation. So if a car rolls over and skids down an embankment, and so I can't just rush down there like I would in a normal traffic accident, use the jaws of life, pop the door open, and get them out. It's going to now involve stabilizing the car with some rope rigs. I could then direct the team members that I know that maybe work on our rope team, and just say, hey, you guys set up a rope rig. I need it in this direction. It's got to support this weight. I need you to grab some medical equipment, and we're going to find a way to ascend down. And then the rest of us are going to carry the very heavy jaws and other cutting tools, and we're going to set up a staging area as best we can nearest the car. So I've given them some minor direction. But for the most part, they know how to work the tools. They know how to work the rope. So with minor tweaks, they're still doing the individual tactics that they've practiced, even though we haven't practiced them in this scenario. We can distill it down to skills that we have practiced before. But once again, if you're not putting the work in for weeks to months to years before in the fire station, that's where those skills get hard to adapt, because now you're building something in the emergent scene, and that never works. It's got to be there have to be building blocks in place before you get there.
I interviewed somebody on the pod a couple of weeks ago now. One of the things he talked about, he's a funeral director, and one of the things he said was that the best thing about leadership when they went into a crisis situation was actually to step back. It'd be very easy if you've got a team of people, as you said, talk about a car that's gone down an embankment. It'd be very easy to possibly be the leader at the front and going down with the team, or
Sure.
Setting. What role did you like to take? Do you trust the team to go and do it, or do you actually, as a leader, sometimes you need to step back and go, actually, I need to involve the whole scenario, because actually this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this. What did you do about that?
I like being with the team. I did not like times I had to step back. I like being in the thick of it with them. But every once in a while, there was a command decision that needed to be made on the outside, or I was in a different role than my day-to-day role. And so I had to be that person stepping back and overseeing the scene. But even when you are in the thick of it with everybody, we do train to not rush in. So I have the ability on my fire truck, if I was to show up at a fire and be the first one, my job is to take that step back and stand on the sidewalk and look at the house, count how many floors we got, see which direction the wind's blowing, where's the smoke at. Then I walk a complete circle all the way around the house. And then I've looked at every window. We got any victims hanging out? Do I have fire showing from areas I didn't see before? And where do I think the seat of the fire is? Where of the fire that's showing is spread from another place? And where do I think the best door to enter in, according to all that information? But while that's happening, my crew will already know I've got to get the hose line off the rig. They generally can judge by the size of the house what size hose line they will need. I don't micromanage that. And so while I'm taking a step back at the beginning stage to do a size up, I can at least trust my crew that they're going to pull the right hose line. They're going to get the right ladders. They're going to get the right tools to force the front door open. So then when I come back around, I could say, okay, guys, we're going to force the front door. Me and him are going to make our entry. Can you guys get a ladder to the second floor? And then more than likely, they've already got that stuff in place because it's things that we've built on ahead of time. So I have the ability in the fire service to take that step back. And then when it's ready to go with the team and be next to them.
And that sort of brings you on to my next question, right? That is you trusting your team. You go, Mark goes off, looks around the property, goes, this is what you are trusting, that your team are not just sat in the fire truck. I'm not saying they would, but they're sat on the fire truck on TikTok doing things like that, right? So how do you build that trust with the team? And then also, it's unlikely you're going to go to an emergency that doesn't have another service with you. You're going to have paramedics, you're going to have police, whatever. How do you build that trust quickly with your other colleagues or also with your team?
I think you got to trust yourself more than anything else. And when I've seen micromanagers, whether in other fields, prior careers, or here in the fire service, I've always felt it was an insecurity on their part, that they were unwilling to accept other people's opinions. So they tried to manage every skill. If they would pull a hose line off the rig, they would say, no, I want the other one. Go get it. And then the guy would pull the hose line off and he would say, no, stretch it in this direction, not that direction. Then this guy's setting up a ladder. No, you're doing it wrong. I want it done this way. And so we've got bosses physically putting their hands on ladders and only moving them 6 inches, saying, no, it's got to be done like this. And all it's doing is slowing the scene down. All it's doing is telling the crew, you don't trust that they know how to do it right. All it's doing is delaying other decisions that need to be made, and it's spoiling their development for years to come. So I've always felt if I could build the team at the station level and we could train and we could practice, they're going to be inspired enough throughout those months to develop their skills because they're going to see it's going to be rewarded on the scene. So they're going to want to do better. I won't have to tell them to be better. They're going to want to train hard and they're going to want to demonstrate their skills. So the rookie is going to see the person with 5 years on and say, wow, when we practiced that drill, that 5-year person really had a lot of job skills. So now I trusted them. And then they get the benefit because I trusted the 5-year guy. The 5-year guy now gets the trust of the rookie. And so it really bleeds down and bleeds back up. And so when I've seen that lack of trust, I've seen it more on the boss's own psyche than anything the crew ever did to earn that distrust.
What behaviors do you think destroy that trust with the team? Is it trying to take control? Is it micromanagement? Is it something else that sort of destroys that belief in somebody?
I don't know what it's like in the corporate world, but in the fire service, it's the micromanaging. People really don't like that. If you're delegated to do a task, whether it's strip and clean the ambulance, whether it's do the inventory for these medical supplies, or whether it's get a ladder to the roof, get on the roof, cut a ventilation hole. I've got to trust that they know how to do those tasks without me telling them how to do them. And that inability to just let them handle something is one of the bigger ways we see in the fire service of people losing trust. The other big one that I've seen is the boss's inability to take the blame when something goes wrong. So for us, and I know it's like in the corporate world, if you're a director and the VP is all mad, that director should be in the VP's office getting his butt chewed out. And it's the same way in the fire service. When the chief is mad, he's going to call me in as a lieutenant or a captain and say, I didn't like the way this happened and blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to go, yes, sir, sir. Yes, sir. Got it, sir. All right, I'm going to go train with the crew. We're going to make this right. We're going to fix it. I got it. But I've seen officers just go, oh, go talk to them. Yeah, these guys, man, I didn't know this was going on. Nobody told me. It's all their fault. That spoils everything. And it paralyzes the operation when a boss does that.
You say you don't know whether it's like that in the corporate world. Trust me, it is like that in the corporate world. I think it's just a human reaction, right? I think I don't know many people like to be micromanaged. I don't know many people like some of those things. So it is a natural human reaction. In a pressure situation, you might go to a site and there might be more experienced people than you or more higher ranking people than you, and you are in charge at that moment in time. How in that pressure environment do you turn around to maybe your boss and turn around and say, you're not to do that because this is what we're doing? How do you work that?
For the most part, our tactics and strategy follow a certain pattern. But if I make a decision before my superior gets to the scene, then that's the strategy and that's what we're going for. If conditions on the outside change, say we're extricating in a car and the car becomes unstable and he sees something different, that chief officer who's above me can then just, hopefully through the radio communication or face-to-face communication, let me know he's going to now take command of the scene. He's going to change the strategy. So it's done through direct and professional communication. If I'm inside the house and I think we're making progress hitting this fire, and the chief officer sees that fire's taking off in multiple areas of the house and wants us to back out, he could simply just make a radio call. Hey, squad one, I've seen a change in fire conditions. I want to pull you out and we're going to reassess. And so I can't take it personal if I lay out a strategy and I go to work and I'm in the middle of doing that work. If a superior now wants to then take command and the responsibility for those decisions, it's totally fine by me. If they see something different and want to change the strategy, as long as it's handled professionally. Hey, squad one, I've seen a change in conditions. Pull out. We're going to reassess. Yes, chief, we're going to pull out. We'll reassess. We'll meet you on the front lawn. So then we've got two-way communication. It's handled professionally. There's no yelling and screaming. And as long as it's handled professionally like that, I think most workers are fine. Even bosses are fine having decisions changed, because conditions are never always the same.
And you sort of talk about different challenges around leadership and all that. You must have seen occasions where you've gone, they've got it wrong. I don't want you to name names. I haven't got the legal backup to say it, but there must be cases which you can share and go, right, we were in this scenario and the leadership, we got it wrong as leaders. This didn't go right because of leaders. And that must be hard when you leave the site to go, well, what do we need to improve? But also, that could be a matter of life and death, quite literally life and death.
Yes. And so we fully accept that and actually have it baked into our standard operating procedures and just the culture of what we do. In the military, they call them after action reports. So we're starting to use that phrase a lot. We used to call them post-incident reviews. But anytime we have a building fire, that's more than just a routine, something in the kitchen. And it involves injured victims, multiple rooms were lost, severe damage to a house. We've been there for a few hours. We will always the next day hold a tabletop session reviewing what did we do, what worked well, congratulate the people, lead with the positive, thank them for all their work, and then say, but here's something that happened that I did not foresee, and here's how I will do it differently next time. But you have to, as the boss, be willing to make those admissions, because we're never going to grow and adapt and get better if you are rigid to your one way of doing things. So I don't know if we're unique in the fire service, but we have that absolutely as part of our culture. We want to review those scenes and absolutely draw the lessons learned from them.
I think there'd be a lot of businesses that could learn from that, because I think in business you perhaps do an event and you do a little bit of a debrief, but you can't discuss every sales deal, you can't discuss every business decision because you make hundreds every day. Sure. But I think businesses could learn from reviewing what's going right and what's going wrong. You must deal with ego is a big term to use at this moment in time, but you must deal with a lot of egos, both within the fire service or emergency services, but also the people you want to go and help. Some people will go, I don't need help. I'm all right. I can get out. I don't need whatever. How do you, in that pressure environment, how do you deal with the stress of what humans deal with? I remember a while ago, there was a study where actually, if you look at, they sort of mapped out a computer simulation of a fire in a building, and certain people would run to the fire. And so you must deal with all of that. How do you deal with those different people who want to help, don't want to help, egos getting in the way? What's your scenario, or what's your solution to that?
Once again, we're pretty fortunate because the majority of the runs we're doing, the 911 calls are going to be medical calls, and the majority of them are going to be routine trouble breathing, abdominal pains, backaches, diabetic runs, the occasional cardiac chest run that's starting to get a little bit more serious, up to the real heart attacks and real cardiac arrests where it's very, very serious. And so of the majority of the calls, we just really get good at talking to people. And so much of the way we handle the medical runs is a way to de-escalate. And so in healthcare parlance, they call it talking down, use a talk down technique. And so we're just so used to seeing people using the 911 system because it's an emergency to them. But for us, it's something that's very routine because I've been on a few anxiety attacks today. I've been on a few abdominal pains today. So are just taught from day one how to always talk in calm, reassuring voices, provide high quality medical care, be caring and compassionate to what their needs are, that it is an emergency for them. And hopefully through that confident medical care, they'll start to calm down based on the trust level because they could see that we know what we're doing. So I think a two-sided argument. I could just be competent with my skills and let them trust that they're in good hands. But it's also the way we're taught to speak to people. It's always in a calm, de-escalating manner.
And that must be hard when you're in a pressurized environment. If you're standing in front of a fire, I know you say it's not so common, but if you're standing in front of a fire to go, right, we just need to go calm, that's quite that's a real inner core you have to adjust, right?
Mm-hmm. That was something I learned early on because I had some bosses that we called them screamers. We would get to the scene. Oh my God, I got this over here and you got to go over there. You get this and you get that. Oh my God, this is going really crazy. And then they do just bark 20 orders in 30 seconds and we're very hyper. And so I knew early on I was going to be the one who talked calmly because those are the bosses that I gravitated to.
You talked about sort of people, juniors coming in, learning as they went through the fire service and learning as they went through. How do you know people are ready for the next level of leadership? What do you look for in qualities of them? You must have promoted people yourself. What have you gone, right, they're ready, they're not, what do I need to do to help them?
So if you've got somebody who is bitter and burnt out and we get 15 years into their career where they might now be considered for a lieutenant's promotion through our testing procedure, if they haven't been doing good work, we'll have noticed that for years. So we actually have our senior firefighters take on a dual role where they're now in a flexible position. So they have the ability when the driver of the fire truck is on vacation, they could drive the fire truck. When the lieutenant who's in charge of the engine is on vacation, they could step up and be the in charge person for the day. So they're in little bits and pieces for years, stepping up and learning those skills. So I'm not only seeing their tactical hands-on skills, I'm getting a chance for years and years to watch them in those step-up roles and how they manage people and how do the scenes go and do the young guys on the job respond to what they're teaching and training. Do they seem to have an attitude that welcomes new people on the job and helps them grow? Or are they the person who just makes the rookie do all the work, so they have to do less work? So there's certainly some attitude and job performance issues like that I think can make a good leader. But a lot of it is just having the skill of tactically doing the job well.
And you said obviously this is all how it works in the fire service, and you don't know how it works in business. But if you were to, I was going, right, Mark, there's a business over there that's struggling. What's the first thing, with your leadership experience from the fire service, what's the first thing you would do going into that business?
I had a chance to do this a little bit, and I've always told them, listen to your people. The leadership starts with listening. If I know it's a lack of resources, maybe I could requisition some better equipment. If it is a lack of training, I easily could provide that training. I just got to develop a class, and we're going to work on that one skill that is lacking. So if it's a distraction, a personnel issue, a personality conflict, these are all things that I can manage, but none of them are things I can manage if I don't know that they're happening. So I always encourage bosses to get out of your office and walk around, be part of the team. And in the fire service, that involves getting out of your office and helping the guys with the training project. So the training is important to me, so it's going to be important to them. I could help them with some inventory. So now I know what the equipment issues are for the day or for the week. I could help them out with some maintenance around the station. So now I'm aware of what is in need of repair around our fire station because I was part of it. And so now I can then advocate for them to the administration because I was part of this task and I now know what the needs are. But once again, if I was just playing video games and watching movies in the office in between 911 calls, I wouldn't be aware of any of those things.
Who do you think is the best leader you've worked with, and why would you hold them in that? You know, if you turn around and said, Mark, give me the name. You don't necessarily have to name that person now, but you know, what would you say is the best leader you've worked with? Is it how they've led you as a team, how they've made you feel as a person? How is, you know, what's made them what you would view as the best leader that you would probably want to try and copy?
The leaders that I enjoyed, or the officers I enjoyed working with the most, were surprisingly from completely various backgrounds. So we had a few highly educated, really book smart, technical people that studied hard and aced exams and got promoted early, but they cared a lot about the job and they worked on those skills from day one and were super book smart, knew tons about managing people and leadership technique. They knew all about the technical aspects of the job and they were good at that. But they were always present and listening and seemed to care about us. And I had a bunch of officers who were just straight up street smart blue collar guys, maybe didn't get promoted as soon, but were so solid at the job and just straight honest people, the kind of person that if you were struggling on the job had no problem pulling you in the office, looking you in the eye and saying, hey, we got this problem. What can I do to fix it? And so that man-to-man, blue-collar, tell-it-to-you straight type of boss also resonated a lot with me. And so the leaders that I liked all did share in common. They cared about their people was probably number one.
What does caring about your team actually really mean? Is it the arm around the shoulder? Is it the finding out about finding out about their personal life? Is it finding out what dog they've got, what sport they like, what team they support? Do you know what I mean? What do you think is that caring for your team type person?
That's a really interesting point because in a lot of management types that I talk to, they see caring and empathy as a weakness. And I come from the exact opposite standpoint of that. Empathy and caring is a strength. And when I care about the team member, I don't just mean I am afraid to make a tough decision or I'm afraid to discipline them if there's a problem. Caring doesn't have to mean I'm willing to look the other way to help a buddy out. A lot of the times, caring about their development means holding them accountable and holding them to a standard. So when I care about the people, it means I not only care personally that they're succeeding and doing well and don't have any distractions, like you had mentioned, the problem at home or the personality conflict. It also means that I care that they learn the job well, and I care that their careers are going to develop. I want to lead training exercises and team building around the station and fire scenes and medical scenes that lead to people becoming very good at their jobs. So when they get to the middle of their careers, those people are now ripe for promotion because they've been built up rather than been kept down. So I've seen bosses, and I see this in the corporate world, they see caring for their people as weakness. And one of the common threads I see is, I don't care about your problems. You're here to do a job. And all of a sudden we're 10 years into a team in an office and nobody's been promoted. I find that one of the biggest red flags of caring for your people. If you've led a team for 10 people and nobody is being promoted, that's a failure of your leadership. If you cared about that team, you would have been building them up. And not only that, taking pride in their advancement. And so, caring and empathy isn't a weakness. It's a strength. And it's not just caring if there's a problem. It's caring on the day-to-day that they're going to develop. And if there is a problem, if I care about them, that's when I do need to tell it to them straight. Look them in the eye and say, what's going on? You're not yourself lately. Let's fix this.
You talk a lot about promotion of people. Everyone is different, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm ambitious personally. I'm ambitious. So I want to get promoted. But there are people in my team who I work with on a daily basis who perhaps don't want to get promoted. They're very happy where they are. Is there in the fire service, is that accepted? Or is it, you've got to be promoted to lieutenant, captain, whatever? No?
No, not at all. In the military, they have a phrase for their officers. So you get out of the academy or officer candidate school and you're a second lieutenant. And then you could go all the way up to general. And it's called up or out. And in extreme rare instances in the American military, if you're good at a niche, they might let you stay. But for the most part, if you're not promoting up, they'll just push you into retirement. It's the opposite with us. We absolutely welcome people who are good at their job. If they want to stay there, they could stay there. We don't want people to have to constantly be seeking the next pay raise and the next step if it's not something that's not a passion for them. Plus, some people like the hands-on of driving the fire truck. You get a lot of people that's what they love to do, and they're good at it. And the whole operation would fall apart if we didn't have talented engineers driving those trucks. So yes, we absolutely in the fire service welcome people to stay at the place that they are comfortable.
If there's somebody listening to this podcast today who's, wants to be a better leader today, what would you be saying to them? Come sit down, Mark, I want to be a better leader. What would you turn around and say, right, you need to go and do this?
I would say start from the beginning of your career and just be good at your job. Because maybe in a large corporation, you could hide, because if you are an engineer and you're designing this, or you're an accountant and you're doing these numbers, and then 15 years later you get promoted and they move you to another building and nobody knows you, that's a little bit different. In the fire service, they're all going to know who you are. And so if you've been the guy just doing the bare minimum, always missing equipment on the ambulance, his fire gear isn't checked out correctly, calls in sick a lot, and then all of a sudden 15 years down the road, you say, hey, I'm going to take that lieutenant's test, and you get a good score. The lieutenant, good luck coming in on day one saying, all right, guys, drop it, give me 20. That's it. You can't just flip a switch and turn it on day one. They're in the fire service. They're going to know who you are. So you've got to have laid the groundwork of being a good team member, somebody that builds other people up, somebody who cares about the younger men and women in the fire service and builds them up and trains them. And you've got to have good technical skills on the job. If you were just the person in the lazy boy chair with the remote watching movies all day, yeah, good luck trying to just become an officer and say, all right, guys, hop to. Yeah, nobody's going to listen to you.
No, yeah, I completely understand that side of things. But you've obviously dealt with, there's a lot of high pressure environments that you guys deal with day in, day out as a fire service and ambulance service and paramedics. How does the fire service deal with sort of that from a stress and pressure point of view? Because that must be the toll of shift work is hard on the body anyway. And then the physical shift work, emotional shift work. And then what do you as a leader have to deal with to support your team in those scenarios?
For me, it's being present and being involved. If I just sit in the office and then the other fire truck or the ambulance goes on all these runs, and then I just wake up in the morning and just say, all right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow, and not ask follow up. Hey, by the way, I heard about this call as it came in over the speaker. Tell me what the outcome was. Or sometimes it's a call I was on, and I will stay up until the ambulance gets back and say, hey, what was the outcome of that patient? And how are you doing? So for me, it was all about just being present, hiding away in the office, and just saying, they got it was never the way. So I was able to follow up on stressors like that by actively talking to the members. And for stressors that were beyond my control, we've actually created in the fire service a new mental health program, and we call it peer support. So whereas if we had a critical run that involved some sort of a tragedy that was a high stressor for people, we would force people into group therapy and counseling sessions with stress debriefers and counselors that the department would hire. And it never worked well because it was kind of forced, and some of the people were processing it just fine. Sometimes the runs really weren't as bad as they were made out to be. And so then people were forced into these group sessions with their bosses present. Now we do it completely different. We send our firefighters, and they could be officers or junior people, and we send them to training to be peer support members, where they are taught to listen and listen for clues of mental health help and mental health stress. And so now if you have a problem on the job, you could just look at the list of phone numbers, and you can call a peer support member, and you are reaching out for your peer, an equal peer of yours, to provide you that help. So things that are above my control, they now have that resource that isn't forced by the bosses. It's them reaching out to.
But I think one of the biggest things on mental health is that, especially guys, we're a little bit different makeup, that we don't necessarily realize we need help. Do you put things in place to go, hang on? And this comes back to that point you're saying about really knowing your team, because otherwise you might go, hang on, he's a bit off. He's not been right since that incident. What do we need to help him? And that must be as a leader, you must need to try and understand people to try and put them through that place, because otherwise you have somebody who just go quieter and quieter and quieter and drifts back.
Yes, those are definitely the signs and symptoms of burnout and stress. And yes, we expect the men in the fire service to be more quiet about that. And so that's why we have the peer support team, is so now that person can in confidence reach out to somebody, and it doesn't have to be a public event. But that doesn't mean me as the boss, I can't personally reach out. And so I like the way we tackle these problems now, because you're exactly right. A lot of the men in the past would just bottle it up.
If Mark could look in the mirror today and go, I've learned all these lessons in my life for the last 10, 15, 20 years, what would you be telling Mark of 20 years ago that you know now that you didn't know 20 years ago, 10 years, pick a time frame, but what would you be telling them?
I learned when I became an officer, it took me a while to learn how to delegate. that was a skill I didn't pick up when I was younger on the job. And I was doing way too much. And so I remember just multiple scenes where I so badly wanted to be seen as one of the guys and one of the team members that I was actively participating in scenes where they really just needed somebody to step back and just supervise. And so I was not only giving them the impression I didn't trust them to do these simple tasks, I was actually taking tasks away from them. So they're now not getting the skill reps and proficiency that I would have hoped for. So it took me months to actually find that middle ground of on the regular non-emergent run or the routine call to just step back and just supervise. And if they need some direction, provide some medical thoughts or assessment techniques that maybe they hadn't thought of. But for the most part, 99.9% of the time, everything's running smoothly. And just to step back and supervise and ask them if they need anything. And if they don't, then we'll take our fire truck and go back. The ambulance will handle this routine call and we'll all be good. But early on, I was doing way too much. And I wish I could have told myself that, hey, you got to learn to delegate.
And was there a moment where you went, you talk about that now, you look back, but was there a moment you went, hey, I know what I need to do differently here? Or was it just a sort of gradual, somebody saying it to you, or was it a gradual fade, as it were, to now delegate it?
It was definitely a gradual thing, but it was many people saying it. We would just be on calls. They say, hey, Lieutenant, we got it. I'd say, I know, but let me pitch in a little bit. No, we really got it. And I just wasn't hearing it. And so I developed the ability to delegate. And what I found with delegating was that was one of the best team building things I could do. So if we had a routine call and I just supervised them, and then if I gave the rookie some tips or something, that would be fine. But for the most part, I would let the senior members give the rookies the tips and tricks and give them the medical assessment issues to look out for. And participate in those conversations without having to lead them. If it's something around the station, I found out I got my work done at a higher proficiency because I could concentrate on the tasks that were assigned to me as a company officer if I wasn't getting bogged down in all the other things in the station. So if there's a project or a training issue, I then could say to the senior firefighter, hey, Brian, I noticed at that scene the other day, our rookie was struggling with the ladder. And he would say, you know what? I noticed the same thing. I've got a great exercise to do. And then I would say, do you need me to help in any way? And he would say, no, we got it. And then now I could say, great, you got it, because I actually got a whole bunch of stuff I got to do. And I really don't have the time to do this right now. And so now I'm trusting them. He sees he's being trusted. He's going to lead the rookie in this ladder training exercise. And the rookie's going to see him as this important figure that's now trusted with that information. And he now sees him as not just a peer, but as a learned member of the department. So it's building the morale of people in the middle by me delegating. So now the team is growing because I'm stepping back, because I'm giving them the room for their growth.
I've been listening to this all the way through, and there's so many translatables to the business world. On the podcast is called the Business Takeaway Podcast. Obviously, your business is a very different business to perhaps some. I don't know how many firefighters around the world are listening to this. Hopefully, some. But what is your sort of golden rule to live by? Now, that could be or sort of biggest lesson you've learned over your career in the fire service. It could be a personal thing, or it could be something connected with the fire service. But what would you say is that sort of, Mark? Somebody said, Mark, what is your golden rule to live by? What would that be?
One is care about your people and just treat people nicely. That is drilled into us from day one, because it's very easy on an ambulance when you're on your 18th or 20th 911 call of the day to be physically tired to the point of at times having some temper come through. And so you got to learn to keep that anger down and get through the shift, and always being nice to people. So we teach people it doesn't cost you anything to be nice. Treat all these medical patients like they're your grandmother. And put a blanket on grandma before we take her outside in the cold, and perform a good medical assessment if somebody just has a minor complaint, and let's provide them some information so maybe they don't have to go to the emergency room, and give them calm, competent, and confident medical care. I think is a way to treat people nicely. So caring about your team, but also caring about the public, were the biggest lessons I took away.
So many things I was thinking parallel from my business and what I do and what I speak to my colleagues about. So thank you so much. Now we're going to come to the end. So I've got some, as I said at the start, we've got some rapid fire questions for you. Let's see how quick your response time is to these ones, right? So are you an Apple or Android user?
Android.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, which you've already hinted at, Facebook, or some people are saying TikTok. Are you on TikTok or not on TikTok? But what's your social media platform of choice?
I like Instagram.
Are you a beach or city break person?
Whew. I like the beaches for vacations. I love living in a city.
The next question: town or country?
Town.
Are you a travel first class or you save the money?
I save the money.
Are you somebody who challenges the status quo or not?
I did at times, because I wanted to push back against the poor leadership that I had seen. And it was very rare. It was a great department. And even in my prior jobs, I wanted to challenge when I had bad bosses. So I always wanted to do it better when it was my turn.
Very good. And I'm standing at a bar. What is your drink of choice?
This is kind of an American thing. For beer, I like American light beers, and I don't care if they're watered down. I just love the carbonation and the hops. It's so thirst quenching. But if it's a bourbon, I will go as high end as possible. And I don't understand why I like the high end bourbons, but I like the cheapest beer you can get.
As soon as I get to the States, I love a glass of Miller Lite. So I'm with
Yes.
you on the beer side of things. Mark, it's been absolutely fantastic. As I said, there's been so many things there that I've taken away personally from a sort of leadership style and understanding how it is in pressure. I'll put a link to your book in the show notes so people can go and get a copy of that. And you'll hold it up now. I'm sure for people it'll be a great read, and I'll try and get myself a copy and have a read of it as well. But thank you, Mark, for joining us today, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Thank you to Mark for joining us today. You might have started listening and go, what's a fire officer got to do with my business? But actually, there's so many takeaways there from how to lead people, how to manage people, and how to work with people that I gained so much knowledge from that. And I hope you did as well. There are many other episodes of the Business Takeaway podcast that you can go back and listen to through our back catalogue, all about different styles of leadership, situations, AI, you name it. We've probably talked about it on this podcast. And there's many more to come. So please do make sure you're subscribed to the Business Takeaway podcast on your platform of choice. And if you can give us a 5-star rating and leave a nice little review for us, that would be much appreciated. A lot of work goes into this podcast from both our guests and myself to make this good for you, our listeners. So until the next time, thank you very much for listening on this podcast. And thank you again to Mark for his time. And we'll see you again soon.